Now the whole parking lot's gonna go.
Seeing that it's 7 p.m., I'd like to call this the May meeting of the Webster Township Board of Trustees to order at this time. I think probably a few have already figured out that it's probably people trickle in a little bit as they try to figure out how to get in here. But that being said, if you would please stand and recite the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Or in your packet, you have the meeting minutes of the Webster Township Board of April 16th. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to review those. Are there any corrections?
All three are just the regular meeting. All three are just the regular meeting.
Well, since the one is such a different meeting, you can do it any way you want, but I was just asking for the April 16th.
I'll move the April 16 regular meeting minutes as presented. Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor of the April 16th meeting minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the May 4th. It was listed as a special meeting. It was really a joint training session, but we need to agree to the minutes because it is listed as a special meeting. May 4th special meeting minutes.
I'll move to approve the May 4th special meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Further discussion?
There is an error.
Okay.
Under the attendees list, Joe Wozniak is the Vanguard coordinator, and then he was introduced as Mike.
Yeah.
His name is Mike.
Yeah.
I don't know which.
I think it looks like a good Joe.
Well, Mike is used for the next sentence, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Those in favor of the May 4th meeting minutes as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. On May 7th, we had a special meeting to discuss village renewals. It was a special meeting. Are there any corrections to this minute?
I would move we approve the May 7th special meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, those in agreement on the special meeting minutes of May 7th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Obviously, the big thing of note you probably already know about, construction started last Friday, and we have no pavement on our parking lot anymore, and it's moving along quite well, not without a couple of glitches. When you do exit, for those of you who aren't through the construction, if you want to get your shoes really dusty and dirty, we have a walkway that goes out along this end and goes over to the gravel parking lot that should be easier to maneuver. Tonight, I have 3 documents that I would like to present. Only 2 of the people are here, so I can't present out there. Donna Whitney, you have been with the township for several years. We did not recognize your time with us, and the amount of effort that you provided for the township in 2021. So we're going to do it belatedly today. And we have for you a certificate of appreciation from 2021.
Thank you very much.
5 years. The next one is for Linda Savinsky, and she
Just walking up to the building right now.
Oh, let's all stand up and give her a standing round.
Yeah, they're scared.
Yeah.
And always on time.
And finally, Mr. Bilson Gould. This is related also. He has been with us since 2006, and he had his 15-year anniversary in 2021. A little related, but we're slow. Okay, my last remark has to do with a loss in our little family here. Barb Legia has resigned as of May 30th, and we're going to miss her dearly. We aren't giving her a certificate of appreciation because she said she didn't want anything. So, if you would please give her a round of applause. In spite of the fact she's deserting us. Okay, we have an agenda in front of us. Do we need to make any changes to that agenda?
Do we want to authorize some money for a flyer?
That would be, we could do that under, let's pull out the PDR committee. It's listed there.
Yeah, but
Let's
we're
pull out
also
that.
talking about voter education.
Oh, okay.
All we have to do is authorize some
Yeah, we've got
funds.
Yeah, okay. We can do that under I.
Okay.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda with the addition of J.
Aye.
No, it's J.
J.
I is property exemption.
You're looking at something different than me.
New ones are on all the tables. We should be in the
Oh.
There you go.
Okay, let's make that J. Thank you.
And it's an insert?
It's
Voter registration flyer. Or voter education, actually, it's not registration. Okay, let me put that over there. Okay,
I still move that agenda.
okay, do the modification of J. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of the agenda as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Call to the public. If you wish to speak, please step forward. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please use the mic. Tell us your name and address.
My name is Gary Fritz, and I own the property at 3676 West North Territorial Road. And I'm addressing you because I purchased that property last year, before I purchased that property. The issue that I have is that I've been told that I have to bring the private driveway that it now has a shared driveway up to the standard of a private road in order to build the house that I want on the property. So the property that I bought had a house on it, has all of the utilities on the property, but the house was torn down. And before I bought the property, I came in and spoke with Sri and laid out my plan, you know, the drawings, the hand drawings of the house that I wanted to build, where on the property I wanted to build it, those such things, to make sure that there were going to be no problems. And at that time, she told me that she saw no problems with what I wanted to do, and that I would still have to put in for the formal zoning application, but she didn't see any issues. So I bought the property. Then, when my house sold in October, I called Sri to ask her some more information about, you know, the property, like how much space that I could build on in the property, which she told me was 10%. But then she told me the real problem was the road, in that I needed to bring the road up to the standard of the ordinance before I could build on it, which is quite a burden that adds on top of what I was plans that I had. So then my architect told me, well, I'll take care of it for you. I'll deal with them. And so he was, you know, set with that. He was going to deal with it. Well, no progress was made with that, so I took it back from him and said, no, I'm going to deal with it now. And I sat down and talked to Sri, and we've made some progress on it. But in the meantime, I'm still sitting and living in an apartment, waiting to start the building process that's going to take me, you know, 2 years to continue. So every month that I'm in the apartment is another expense of, you know, extending my living in an apartment versus the house that I want to build. So I'm asking you to help get this problem solved and expedited so that I can start my build process.
The board may need some additional information. How many homes on this private drive
There are 7.
exist?
Well, there are 6 existing.
Okay.
My property has a driveway, and, you know, we travel the road, so there's 7 owners there. And, you know, it's a well-maintained road, and there's no real issues that I see, and I don't understand why I'm not grandfathered into being able to build my house when it had all the existing stuff there. So I would really appreciate it if the board could just allow me to build.
When did the last house on that site go away?
I'm not sure. I purchased the property in June of '23, last year, and it was gone then.
Thank you. Other comments from the public?
Kay Strumler, 8255 Huron River Drive. My comments as that Webster Township representative to the Watershed Council are not surprisingly about water quality. I just want to highlight 2 things. So the University of Maryland Environmental Studies Department did the first report card for all the rivers in southeastern Michigan, including the Huron. And the Huron got a grade of C+. And I wrote about this in my report to you, but I gave you these in your mailboxes because I think it's easier to use these QR codes if you want to see more information about the study. But my highlight is Rebecca Esselman, who's the executive director of the Watershed Council, made some comments about C+. So it's complicated, she says. On one hand, we've made a lot of progress in the past 3 or 4 decades. So for example, the Clean Water Act addressed a lot of pollutants starting in 1972. So there have been improvements there. And also the Natural Rivers District protects the floodplains of the Huron River, which helps water quality. And there was a statewide phosphorus ban in 2012. So we got high marks in reducing some pollutants, But in other cases, we know, for example, that PFAS is a big problem. And also, there's some bacteria in our waterways which can come from septic fields, or it can also come from overflowing of wastewater treatment systems. And then also the big problem is in southeastern Michigan, where the Huron River watershed is, it's home to like half of the residents of all of Michigan in this area, not necessarily all in the watershed. So there's a lot of increasing urbanization and paving, which creates impervious surface. So that creates challenges. So she says now is the time, not the time to be complacent. We need to keep moving forward and to try to address policies that prevent pollution in the first place. So that was my first point. My second point is shorter. Mr. Westman has highlighted that the Ann Arbor Greenbelt has expanded their territory for preserving land. And in the Observer this month, so my point is about the connection between land use and water quality. In the Observer this month, the City Council, I'm quoting what the article said, City Council approved a measure to protect Ann Arbor's drinking water by expanding the Greenbelt to incorporate all Washtenaw County townships within the Huron River watershed that are upstream of Ann Arbor. So Ann Arbor gets 80% of its drinking water out of the Huron River above Barton Dam. So I think this is an acknowledgement that, yes, when we preserve land, both farmland and natural features, it's a benefit for us and our community, for our infrastructure, for our rural character, but it also benefits everybody who's downstream of us in helping with the water quality in the Huron River. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, Dave Daly, 7223 Mulder. I don't know if you saw in the Sun-Times the article that they had on Fix the Dang Gravel Roads. I know that you had the road commission here February, early March, to a meeting that, I don't know, it said, at least in the paper, no public attendance. I don't know how it was communicated because I never heard about the meeting or I would have been there. But I think maybe if we tried it again, I mean, they were able to get Debbie Dingle, Jennifer Conlon, they had the road commission leadership to talk about what they're doing to fix the roads, and it was well attended by the Linden Township. So just a suggestion if we could get that rescheduled and maybe have some public attendance to it. Thank you.
Tom Neal, 7623 Kingfisher Court, Webster. I am here as both a private citizen and as the chair of the Planning Commission. Since Barbie will not be here probably tomorrow night during our meeting, I wanted to publicly thank you on behalf of the Planning Commission for helping facilitate the things that we do, even though it's not a day-to-day like you have with the rest of the board. So on behalf of the Planning Commission, thank you for your service.
Seeing no further comments, we have a presentation tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Cook, you're so small.
Congratulations, Barb. Thanks for your, what is it, about 8 years, 9 years of service here?
11.
11? Wow. Okay. Just a couple things. As I drive in here, I was here Friday doing the recycling. I thought, I wonder if they're going to tear the whole parking lot out. They did. I'm so glad that we had the highest contractor beat them down to the lowest contractor's price. Didn't give the lowest contractor a chance to drop his price. And we paid Washtenaw Engineering, I don't know how much money to oversee the thing. What would you do if somebody was in a wheelchair? How would you get them the building? Why didn't they go down there and tear this half out, asphalt it, and then go over there? It just blows my mind. It's crazy. So anyhow, besides that, I was here in March and made some comments about the planning commission, and then I kind of got a little flack from it. So tomorrow night, there's a meeting, and I guess the biggest part of it is accessory structures. So the township has allowed accessory structures if they're 200 square feet or less in the township for quite a few years. You don't need zoning, you don't need a Washington County building permit, but now you have to be outside of the setback. So most places are 30 feet from the side setback. That's going to get changed tomorrow night, and then it's going to come to the board here. And I got accused of, when I said everything comes to board, it pretty much gets okayed. I would like to know, I know you guys won't give me an answer, but maybe I can get an email. Other than probably John Westman and John Kingsley and John Sharf, how many members have been to a planning commission meeting and even understand what goes on? Because it's totally confusing. So tomorrow they're going to go over this. So for instance, my house sits 32 feet from the side lot line. I have a central air conditioner, but if you want to put a generator in, it can't sit in that because it would be in the 30-foot setback. And I need to get a permit, but I don't need a permit for an air conditioner. Tell me the difference. They're both attached to the house. They both sit on a plastic or concrete pad. And the other thing is these accessory buildings, I don't even understand why they're changing it. Why can't it sit in the setback? You can't have a hoop house, you can't have a deer hunting blind. There's mention in there about a kid structure if they want it for the bus. I mean, it just goes on and on. And that's what I said. Every time we get a new employee, a new member on the board, we want to rewrite the world book. So I'm going to come tomorrow night, and then I'm going to come here to this board meeting when it gets passed on. I'm going to make the comment again. Has there been problems with accessory structures like sheds in the setback? Or is it just something that somebody decided we needed to change? I mean, I haven't had any complaints. I probably talked to more people in this township than everybody up here in this township board. Hate to say it. The next thing is, at the March meeting, and all the complaints that went on with our zoning enforcement officer, which maybe he's not here anymore, I was kind of wondering why the township board the next morning didn't come in and terminate the man. Because the last I knew, the township board had the authority to do that. And as far as I know, he's still here. And now we're going to do a social media policy because that's going to cure the problem of him fighting with people on Facebook, I guess. I mean, the township board needs to step up, have some backbone, and take the bull by the horns and do what's right. The next couple things. Township employees that are parking in the building, so when the asphalt gets redone, it's not going to happen no more. If the township board is going to allow it, I want to put it as an agenda item so that people can come and we can discuss it. It's my building, I pay taxes. The employees that are parking in it don't live here, they don't pay taxes, they can park outside with everybody else. Last thing. If anybody from the township wants to come on my property, they can contact me by email or phone. Everybody here knows who I am. You have my phone, you have my email. Nobody comes on. There's been a lot of complaints the last couple months about people showing up and been asked to leave and they say they don't have to. And that's another thing the township ought to get a handle on. Last but not least, the snowplow contract you guys hired last winter. I would like to request a copy of their insurance, liability, workers' comp, and vehicle insurance to see if it was had. And there again, I'd like to thank Barb for all her 11 years of service, and good luck in your new adventure. One last thing, I see you're going to appoint a township clerk tonight. Was there applications taken in? Because I couldn't find anything on the website, which doesn't surprise me because that website to me is just mind-boggling. It doesn't get updated. Stuff doesn't get put on it. There was nothing on it about the parking lot, which that could all been scanned and put on it. So maybe it'll get, maybe it was on there, maybe I missed it. I don't know. I was just curious. Thank you.
Any other
I have one. My name is Marie Walker, address is 7950 Donovan Road. I'm having issues with, I'm trying to split 80 acres, and we have a problem where one of the splits is gonna landlock a split. So there's property in front, it's gonna landlock the property in back, and I'm being told that we have to put a road in. Well, we're asking that we don't have to put a road in because there's no plans on a house being put back there. And we're asking that if at some time in 20 or 30 years that's gonna happen, that at that time they do all the permits and the driveway permits, road permits, and they do everything at that time. We've done all the required steps, and that's the last thing that we're stuck on is we need permission from the board to not have to do a driveway that's not gonna get used and it's just gonna disintegrate. And it's like, why put in the time, effort, and money to do this if it's not necessary? So, and Shree's gonna, I guess, address it later in the meeting, but I just, you know, this is holding everything up. This is our last step, so we can't do any of those splits until we have an answer on this, because I can't landlock that property. So I'm hoping you guys will approve it, so if and or when it ever does get built on, it could be addressed at that time, and we don't have to do it now. So, thank you.
Other comments? Okay, at this time, we have the Parks and Rec Committee has a plan over here. Brian, please introduce yourself and your compadre there, because he's part of that committee also. And you have one more. Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, Brian Barrick, Chair of the Parks Committee, and also here tonight, Jeff Gaither and Joanna Westman. You might recall in early 22, this board tasked the Parks Committee with exploring community interest in a park on this property behind Township Hall and the fire station, as well as what type of park it should be, what kind of amenities should be there, essentially what the community was interested in. In the fall of 22, the Parks Committee issued a survey, both in online and hard copy formats. Also attended the Fall Festival to solicit input. We had 374 responses to that survey, which were overwhelmingly positive with interest for a park. The general consensus was for a low-intensity, passive use park, walking paths, natural areas, wildlife viewing, etc. So with that in mind, and with this board's approval, we solicited an RFP for landscape architecture design services to create a master plan for the park. Insight Design out of Ann Arbor was awarded the contract for that by this board, and we have been working with them for really for the past year or so in developing a master plan. They took the initial survey that the Parks Committee did, used the data from that to create 3 different options, 3 different concepts for a park. The committee reviewed those concepts, provided input, and then Insight Design narrowed that down to and refined that into 2 concepts, which were then issued for community input and feedback, again at the Fall Festival and in online and hard copy formats. The results from that survey in the fall of 23 were used to, again, refine those 2 concepts into a final concept, which you see over here.
just gonna, sorry, I'll talk loud, but I can't talk without pointing. So this is Township Hall here. This is the fire hall. Parking lot that's currently being reconstructed. And by the way, this master plan has been coordinated with Washington Engineering that did the design for the parking lot reconstruction, so that we're effectively using the dollars that are available to accomplish multiple goals. On the west side, or excuse me, the south side of the property here, adjacent to Webster Village, you see additional paved parking, a drop-off loop, some stormwater management, and then a hub of amenities here with a little bit of an entry and seating plaza, a pavilion, a small children's exploratory play area. And then from there, it really branches out into the rest of the property behind Township Hall and the fire station, with a paved pathway loop that's also subdivided, and then some unpaved lawn trails in amongst prairie and native plantings, native vegetation with a reforestry plan along the fence line. As also part of this, there's been some overflow parking incorporated into the plan for events here at Township Hall and at the Webster Village, with some overflow parking located here and then over here along the drive as well. So this is like I said, this is the consensus plan that came out of the various forms of community input that the committee received, and the creative abilities of Insight Design. Along with this is the cost estimate. The total cost estimate for everything shown on that drawing, bid out to the contracting world, is about $1.15 million. The committee has scoped out potential phasing with a phase 1 value of about $450,000, and then a phase 2 value of about $700,000. The committee also has some ideas of how things might be economized a little bit with some work share, as well as simplification of some of the elements. So that's all open for discussion. We're also interested in seeking grant opportunities should the board wish to pursue this further. But at this stage, with the board's agreement, if you should so desire, we would ask that the board accept this master plan by Insight Design and develop a resolution to formally adopt it. If, after adoption, if the board would like to task the committee to take the next step and explore potential grant funding opportunities to offset the cost of a phase 1 development, the committee is here and willing to serve. Jeff and Joanne, anything to add?
Questions?
I'm sorry, I'm in a weird place to be able to see it. But does the paved path connect then to the historical villages paths?
Yes.
Everything is connected then?
Yes.
Okay, and all accessible for?
Yes,
okay.
yes, absolutely. And I should have pointed that out. Really the goal in having the node of activity on the south side of the property is so that node serves both this park development as well as the village. And having some of those elements close to the village, you can think of parents sitting at the corn crib enjoying a concert and some music, and letting the kids wander over there and play, but it's still within sight distance. So we try to, Insight Design was very thoughtful in that respect.
Is it special needs accessible?
Absolutely.
So you'll have special needs swings, like Dexter is putting in,
Mr. Daly, the board will get to public in a second here. This is for the board to be asking questions.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. The cost estimate, does that, I mean, what part of parking does that cover? And that's for all the plantings and
That's,
walkways and what have you?
yes, that's all in. That also includes soft costs for design and engineering, construction oversight, et cetera. Like I said, this inside did coordinate this plan with Washington Engineering, who's doing the parking lot. So the cost estimate includes the portion of parking that is not in the current contract.
And does the stormwater management plan, and I understand it's conceptual, how does that relate, connect to the existing or the to-be new parking lot stormwater?
Yes, so again, that was coordinated so that the drop-off loop and the additional facilities south of the parking lot, that those would tie in and integrate with the Washington Engineering plan.
Thank you.
Other questions?
How far is the loop?
1 mile.
1 mile.
Mr. Daly,
yes.
you wish to comment?
Yes, I just wanted, Dexter is putting in a new park specifically adaptable for special needs. Not specifically, I mean, to include special needs, autistic, cerebral palsy, whatever. Is that going to be part of this park?
Yeah, the vision is that it would be universally accessible, and that is
But if you're not going to have play structures that are accessible to special needs, then it's not.
that's what I'm saying, is that universal accessibility is a standard above and beyond ADA. So the goal is to design and construct this to be universally accessible. If, depending on the grant funding opportunity, if the board so desires to move forward and seek grant funding, many of the grant funding sources will require universal accessibility. So that is absolutely integral to the thinking.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was there.
Anybody else in the public like to make a comment on the plan?
Thank you.
Okay, next steps forward, we need to find out if the board is accepting of this plan, and if so, at the June meeting, we should come forth with a resolution adopting the park's natural plan, master plan. Is there any type of motion to either move forward or not move forward?
Well, I would move that we support this proposed master plan as presented.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. We wouldn't be necessarily adopting it tonight. We would put forth a formal resolution because most grant programs would require an actual resolution. So we don't have that prepared tonight. We would move forward with it next meeting if we desire to do so. Those in favor of adopting the master plan presented to be codified at next board meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
You think that would take a roll call?
it will next, we'll do the.
Well, I know you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have a few reports here. Treasurer's report, Mr. Sharp.
Good evening. I don't intend to highlight any of the information and the elements of the report that you have in your packet. I have two comments about Treasury in general. One is that the annual ARPA report was filed on time. The funds that were allocated to Webster was, I'm going to round, $715,000. This is the first time that we've had to file the annual report where we could actually say we had a plan and that we had committed and expended some of the money. Up to now, we've expended $370,000, and the outlook is to expend the remaining $345,000 during the course of this fiscal year. The other item that I wanted to mention is that the annual audit is ongoing, and that this body can anticipate the audit report presentation at the board meeting in June. And those are my comments. Any questions, comments, advice?
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the treasurer's report and the bills as presented, as well as the anticipated bills received before our next meeting scheduled for June 18th, 2024.
Support.
Further discussion? Roll call. Shelley?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. On your agenda, you have consent agenda reports. I'd like to break out the PDR committee report because we need to approve the PDR flyer costs. Other than that, is there anything else you'd like to pull out?
I just have a question, but if it can wait to the discussion section.
Well, first of all, we need a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda reports as amended.
Is there a second?
I will support.
Okay, Shelley, you have a question?
Yeah, I was looking over the sheriff report, and I noticed on it that there were 4 animal complaints. And I just wondered, given, you know, the questions that are occurring, do we end up seeing what those complaints are? Do they come back to us? Do we have any idea what the animal complaints are? Is potentially there are more than we know about?
We have to specifically pick those complaints out and ask the sergeant, and we can get detailed information on it.
So it's possible that complaints go to the sheriff that are never enforced by us because we don't see them?
Right.
Just wondering.
And there is a state law in terms of.
If it's a nuisance versus, yeah, right.
And the sheriff's department can ticket without us even knowing that it was done. But if you wish to have details on those 4 complaints, we can get those.
No, I was just, given the situation with the animal ordinance, I just wanted to make sure that we had a full picture of what the actual complaints were in the, you know, that were impacting us. And if there was a big chunk of them missing or some chunk of them missing that we didn't understand, then that would be important for us to know about as we're looking at changing it.
Okay,
John, I got a question about fire department runs. I don't see any in Webster. Webster this time, but in Dexter Township, or city of Dexter, double runs on the same day, that keeps, and I've seen that before. Is that a typo, or you guys know? Is it that they're actually making 2 runs to the same site within hours of each other, or?
Somebody sent 2 trucks.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if they're sending 2 trucks and charging for each one or what?
Yeah, there are frequent flyers.
Yeah, they're very likely were separate and unique calls, might have been the same matters, but 2 different times.
I think it would help if it had times on it. I don't know if we can get those, just to see. That was why I was concerned it was like a double charge or something. And I've seen them before in ours, but I don't see them this time.
The consent agenda, we want to take out the PDR estimate. Do we have a number on that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think that we are comfortable, well, we're talking about a flyer on item J, I thought.
Well, the J is voter education, not
It's all,
two-sided.
it's all the same mailer, isn't it?
Yes.
So all we need, as far as I'm concerned, all we need to do is approve an amount of money that we can spend for a flyer.
Okay.
And the PDR flyer is 2 pages.
Color.
Yeah. And then we can have a black and white of 1 or 2 pages, which would be one more easy page. I don't have a quote for them, so I don't know what the cost would be. For sure, it would be less than $2,000. It'd probably be less than $1,000, but I know for sure it'd be less than $2,000.
Tax bill.
No, but I'm just talking about the flyer.
Okay.
Just the flyer.
Okay.
We had some discussion too about the content and
Yes.
where the flyer directs people.
So, we probably need to cover that under J. Okay, consent agenda, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion on it? Okay, those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Old business. We have in our packet a couple of different policies. Shelley, do you want to go through these?
Yeah, so last time we met, we agreed that we could split the 2 policies, split it into 2 policies, which is what I did. So there's an acceptable use of technology policy, and then there's a public expression of personnel policy. When I first addressed or suggested the policy, I had a difficult time finding applicable social media policies, and I did find some this time around. So I was able to use those different cities and public boards and how they address the issue of public expression. So the changes to the 1 document shifted into 2 are attached to the back. You can see that the acceptable use policy has a few additional new things on it that weren't there before. One of those things is the access and privacy. This is one of the things that we need to get ourselves sort of compliant with for our own protection as well as the township's protection. And that is, we also, for the record, for both policies, identified and defined personnel. So the definition of personnel is any employee, appointee, or elected official performing business on behalf of Webster Township. So that's what I'm referring to when I say personnel. So if we're looking at the acceptable use policy under the procedure itself, access to privacy, personnel shall not share personal access codes or passwords with anyone, including other personnel. Personnel shall not provide access to Webster Township systems or to unauthorized users. So that was an addition to the policy that was not there before. Most of the information that you see in this policy did exist in the previous policy. Because it was more of a information, access to information or applicable use policy is what it's usually called. Did anyone, and then you can see at the back of it, those were the things, the end of it, the DEFG, those were the things that were moved to the new social media or the public expression policy. Did anyone have any feedback on this policy, or is there anything that we want to go through piece by piece?
I have a question for
Sure.
you. Access and privacy number 2. Did you intend maybe that there should be a not? Personnel shall not?
Yeah, yes, I did. I sure did intend that. That's a huge difference. Any other comments or feedback? Does it look like a general acceptable use policy to you?
I'm sorry, I'll just continue. I think this was a much better drafted document and easy to follow versus some of the language that was in the previous document with clarification on personnel.
Yeah.
And what we're actually looking to accomplish with the policy.
Thank you. Much easier when it's split into two different things.
I think we should also, between, well, probably in this policy, rescind policy 0318. Statement to that effect.
Private, yeah. Do you just do that as a statement prior to, these get signed, don't they? I can't remember, do we sign the policy for the clerk, or?
Do I sign policy?
I don't remember either.
No, I would, usually on all the resolutions, or particularly zoning ordinance amendments, we rescind.
Okay,
So
so
I
we
would
just
probably
put
add
that
it
on. Okay. Then the update to the social media policy was, I made it more of a personal expression of personnel. In order to ensure that people still felt like they could speak their mind, particularly as we enter into a season where there's a lot of campaigning, and there's always going to be a season of campaigning. So this one is more about ensuring and recognizing that when you are personnel of Webster Township, that you are likely seen as personnel of Webster Township, whether you are speaking that way or not. So being cognizant of that is the critical sort of theme of this, and ensuring that when you're in a situation where you're speaking, that it's clear that you are not speaking as the expert of Webster Township unless you are supposed to be, right? Unless the board has allocated that to you, or that's part of your job responsibility. So any feedback on this one?
I only have one question. After our meetings, typically, but not always, I receive a request from MLive or sometimes where I need to relate to the sometimes what went on in our meeting. I do that in a hopefully analytical manner, not as my opinion. I question and see, while I'm not necessarily told by the board, specifically designated, that I should be giving that information out. I do. I think that particular statement needs to be maybe broadened a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not a criticism of what it says. I agree completely with what
Right.
it says, but I'm asked a question and answer.
Yeah, I think you're specifically designated by the board makes it a little more complicated because maybe somebody did that a long time ago, but you can't redo that every time. And I don't think it's out of the scope of practice for the supervisor to do what you're doing. So how would we broaden it to make sure that it's clear that, you know, the clerk can speak on clerk things, and the supervisor does publicly represent the township sometimes. That's part of the role of the supervisor, right?
I did have something that I'd like everybody to take a look at. It's on the first page, toward the bottom, under 4, and it's how to handle confidential information, and it says, and when there is sufficient assurance that appropriate security of such information will be maintained, and it seems, I'm not sure what sufficient assurance would mean. And I would prefer to have that say shared directories or network systems only to authorized individuals with a demonstrated need to know, because that's more specific.
I think what we're on this other policy now, but to your point, I think what this is saying is that we aren't going to call something confidential or store it. If it's confidential information, it has to be stored in a method that allows for it to be confidential.
So what's sufficient assurance?
I would say that it's stored on our network systems, and, you know, in a way that only people who are supposed to have access to it. Or if it's a paper version, that it's stored in a way that is not in this room, you know, that it's not accessible to the public. However, lots of our stuff can be accessible to the public, so.
So what you're addressing here is the way the information is stored, not the individual who might receive the information.
Right, this is more about the technology, about how we
That's what I
store
mean,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what this is about. So what you're speaking of, look at number 2. Number 2 is the people. So number 2 addresses, if I'm not supposed to see it, I shouldn't be looking at it. That's the people part. Number 2 is the people part, yeah. Okay, to go back to Mr. Kingsley's suggestion, how do we say personnel in letter C? Personnel may be viewed as acting on behalf of the township when interacting with the public or social media. So instead of, as such, no employee shall knowingly represent themselves as a spokesman of the township unless specifically designated by the board. What if it says unless it's within the scope of their role? Because maybe Mr. Westman might speak to the press about what's going on with the PDR board. And that would be appropriate, right, in his role on the PDR committee. Does that make sense?
So what was your suggested add, I'm sorry?
I know, I'm trying to think. So, as such, no employee shall knowingly represent themselves as a spokesman of the township unless it is within an established role. there would be an established role, where the clerk, even the treasurer, if a question was asked of the treasurer, right?
And then continuing or specifically designated by the board?
Well, we could do that, yeah, or specifically.
Unless within their established role?
Unless within an established role or specifically designated by the board. Anyone else? One of the things I just wanted to point out, it hasn't come up, but it could come up, you know, if there's an election, so there'll be a change of guard, right, most likely, is we haven't really thought out social media a lot on this board because many of us aren't on it. But if you were friends with people on the board, and you had made friends with people on the board through your social media accounts, and you posted something, even if you said, I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, and more than 3 of us commented on that comment, that could be a violation of Open Meetings Act then. So it is really something for us to think about in terms of how we interact on social media, and that's the point of this policy. I just wanted to put it out, because I don't think people quite think about it that way, and it's a thing.
So you think that people on social media have more than 3 friends?
Some do. Most of them just have enemies. So not some enemies on the social media. But, yeah, I think, but if 3 of us were to interact on, or 4 of us were to interact on social media at the same time, on the same comment, somebody else posted it and 4 of us responded, that could be a violation of Open Meetings Act. So it's really critical to think about, you know, what you do on social media and how you're interacting.
So when I post something, you shouldn't put a like.
You know, we could be secretly conversing that way. Or you just have to be careful, it's not 4 of us, it's not more than 3 of us.
So on the technology policy, you actually make reference to that within the email, and not replying all.
Yeah. I do it on the social media one too, or the public expression in D. Social media may have unintended consequences for a board member or the township, including possible violations of the Open Meetings Act and issues related to the creation of public records. Personnel should be cognizant of their responsibilities, township policies, and legal obligations. That's the reason why I put it there. We're all pretty cognizant of it in email. I would say, you know, we pay attention to it there. But I just wanted to bring up the social media aspect too.
I think we've got this about ready for prime time.
Okay.
Both of them.
Just another comment. I guess I would ask for the formatting kind of insane.
Whatever, yeah.
Because we've got
Yeah.
township policy on one and nothing on the other. And title, policy numbers in different places. We just so it flows similarly.
Yes, I didn't have the electronic template, yeah, so.
And then finally on technology, towards the end, you have noted that you moved particular items out,
Yeah, those all deleted.
but those would go away.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Barb, if you sent, or somebody sent me the template I could use, I can make these changes and send it back, if that works. And then would we just approve these next time around, is that the idea?
I think the public expression of personnel is the template that we use.
Okay. Yeah, it does kind of.
Thank you, Shelley. Dexter Senior Citizen Agreement.
Hopefully
The very last page that is in that assembly of pages is the senior center's attempt to answer the questions that were raised by this board at the last meeting. I guess I would start by asking if they addressed your questions, or if you still want more additional information.
I think it addressed a lot of my concerns, John. They did say that they would give us a breakdown of the Meals on Wheels for this area. We have a total, but not how many are here. And that's just a reference saying I'd like to see, if you can get that.
I will ask.
And they did break down what the dollar amounts are going towards, at least in a general sense.
John, do you know why, with the 24 budget, they are, I mean, the request is 80,000, split 50-30, and then in their budget summary, they only utilize 50, which of course generates a smaller percentage than if you use the entire 80.
Correct.
Which seems to be part of their, incentive that we should be all in, the smaller percentage, but in fact, when you add in the 30, it's almost 27% of the overall budget.
Right. What you're referring to, I think, is the difference between their operating budget and the budget for the project.
Right.
So the $30,000 request is for contributing to the building that's being built, and not for their operating budget. So that's why it's broken out separately like that. And I think that also is a reflection of that there's not an inherent expectation that that $30,000 request would be recurring, whereas the $50,000 request might be considered recurring. I will say that based on my personal assessment of the demographics of Webster residents 60 and older versus 60 and older in this entire service area for the community, that the 50,000 percentage of the budget at 17% is very close to the percent of our demographic of 60 and older.
You have the agreement in front of you.
I have some suggestions.
I'm listening.
Item number 4, they've offered to provide Webster with up to 50 membership vouchers. For those that may not know, the cost of a one-year membership at the senior center is $25. On one hand, I like this paragraph. On the other hand, I think we should have some discussion if we want to keep this in the contract. How could we fairly allocate these 50 vouchers? I don't know how we would do that in a way that would be considered completely fair. And then in section 6 under payment, they're requesting the payment of the capital, the $30,000, before June 1st. I might consider a later date, or even perhaps undated, to be decided upon what project that we actually agree to fund. Whether that be, I don't know what that might be. And then my last comment on the language that's presented is, my personal recommendation in paragraph 8 would be to eliminate the words "for cause." either party could terminate this agreement for any reason with or without cause.
Are you going to be able to make the May 1st deadline for the 50,000 contribution?
Well, so it's written so that it's 50,000 in 12 monthly payments.
Yeah.
But we can make the April and May payments before the end of this month, if this body wants us to do that. And then we would have to make the June payment in June.
I just want to make all three of them at once.
We can do that as well.
In reference to your questions, you're on the board of the senior center, so you have some understanding of what's happening with the leadership. I don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty of how to exactly use $30,000. They tell us that it's for the new facility, and it's a very small portion of the cost, so it's going towards a bigger piece of the puzzle. I don't think it's helpful for us to nitpick exactly how they use the $30,000 in a bigger cost. And it's not more money than we've been paying. I also, along the side, the question of number 4, process for the use of vouchers will be established by the DSC in Webster Township. I think maybe if other townships have, or other, I guess it's townships, feeding into the DSC have done this, they probably have an established process for how they determine how to give away vouchers.
I think vouchers is a new idea.
So, I mean, it's definitely something they'll come up with a plan. They will probably use across the board, is my guess, with all the townships.
I think we need to try number 4 and see if it works or not. If it doesn't, then, our next contract will.
But if you put out an email blast,
Yeah.
and we get 200 requests for a voucher, then what? Lottery?
Would we be managing those vouchers, or was it seniors?
They're vouchers for us, for our residents.
No, I get that. I mean, a simple way to promote timely renewals would be to say the first 50 residents who renew their membership.
We're talking about seniors here.
But that would take us off the hook.
Well, and I think that they're actually looking at this as a way to grow their membership of Webster residents, not subsidize existing membership.
Well, then you would have to say that for new memberships only.
It's like buying a cell phone.
But I think that process can be determined between DSC later. It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Is somebody going to offer
Did
this
you have an
contract?
opinion about the timing of the 30,000? Do you want to stay with what they've proposed?
Yeah, I think so.
So Shelley, are
Yeah,
you?
I move that we accept the contract. I'm sorry, I have one more thing before I move that. Your question is, or your suggestion is to take for cause out. So you're saying that they could end this contract whenever they wanted and not show cause, that they have that right. But what if they take our money and then end the contract? I would assume we would want them to show cause for that.
I can't imagine what that would be.
Well, that's why for cause is in the contract.
Yeah, but if you keep reading it, the other party fails to perform its obligation. I think you could take.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I think you
Yes,
could take.
it's not
for
or
cause.
at any time, it's, yeah, okay, yeah, we can take it out. Then I would move that we approve this agreement and with the amendment of removing for cause in section number 8.
Is there a second?
I'll support.
Okay, further discussion.
Yes, I think we should indicate, as John noted in item 6, first 3 installments shall be due for June 1st.
So it would read, the first 3 installments be due before June 1st, 2024.
Yes.
Meaning the monthly May payment, the monthly June payment, and the capital asset payment as the installments, right? Because that's not an installment necessarily, but is that what you mean? By the
Well, I was
installments?
only referring to the first paragraph of item 6, not the second one. That's a standalone.
What are the 3 installments that are?
April, May, June.
Oh, April, okay. I was, okay. Oh, right.
Any further discussion? Roll call, Harms.
Aye.
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 No.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we have a request by Mr. Sam Schwartz, who is here tonight. This is not anything that we haven't seen before. Sam, would you like to come forward and tell us what you want to do there?
Just have the motorcycle races out on the farm again, like we had for the last 30 years or so.
Have you ever had a complaint?
Not that I'm aware of.
So tell us about your time trials, how they work.
Well, you have sections set up around the property with a loop trail. And each section has obstacles with different lines set up for different class levels. And one rider rides at a time, and they have a scorecard. When they exit the section, they are given their score. And you move on to the next section, the next rider comes in. They last from the section's open about noon, and they end at about 6 o'clock.
How many total participants?
It depends on the weather. If it's nasty out, it'll be less, but generally around 30 to 40. If it's a really nice day, you might have 50. Varies.
Any questions, board members?
I would state that I have his certificate of insurance liabilities, and that he has contacted the sheriff and the fire department.
I have one question. I mean, we have Dexter Area Fire on here. Is that who you contacted, or?
Is it Grissom?
Okay. I'm just wondering, because Northville is closer.
Yeah.
A lot closer for you.
I'd just like to confirm
Oh,
that
yeah.
this was not on the portion of the property that's PDR
Correct.
detected or protected, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I will move to approve the special event permit application from Mr. Sam Schwartz for the general term, race, motorcycle products, excuse me. June 9th and October 6th of 2024.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Barb?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
We're gonna practice in the parking lot?
Okay, Potts Drive. Back in June of 2023, we approved with conditions an extension of Potts Drive. The construction has not begun, and therefore the previously approved extension will expire. Sri, do you want to speak to this? Yes, please.
Thanks, John. I just wanted to point out that Majid Kasani, the applicant, is here in the audience tonight. The board gave us an approval for the private road permit before with some conditions attached to it. One of them is that Majid is required to get a private road maintenance agreement, a new draft, back to the board for approval prior to start of construction of the road, which is why a compliance permit was not issued to start construction, because Majid has been working with the residents to come up with a draft that's agreeable to everybody. And that, and with other reasons, I would let Majid speak for it, has led to the delay, and we are here, getting close to 1 year, the expiry date of the private road permit, and the progress has been slightly slow. Like I mentioned in the memo, there is no option for extending the permit when it's coming to an expiry date, so we will be looking at it as a new permit. So I'll let Majid go over his version of summary, and then I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a while. I think we've been working with our neighbors there to get everybody's consensus on some sort of an agreement on updating the maintenance agreement that was existing from several years ago. I think it took me about maybe 7 to 8 months at least to have everybody agree on some sort of a language that I shared with Sri. And we were ready to go and have it recorded at the Register of Deeds. So that's an accomplishment. What I didn't know is some neighbor friction over there that kind of played into delaying all that process for me, at least, to get to that point. And I also got a surety bond to get the work with from a contractor that I'm working with. And I think we're just ready to move on after we get your blessing to start the construction. So that's where we're at, and if you have any questions for me, please let me know.
Board members?
I have a suggestion. In your version 1 draft of the Potts Club, it says 2 bids will be received and presented to the members. I think it should say at least 2. It shouldn't be limited to 2.
Yeah,
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Also, in that regard, it says scheduled meetings will be held quarterly, and then it says meetings will be held on the 3rd Monday every other month. Those are exclusive. If it's every other month, then you would have 6 meetings. So,
As opposed to 4.
as opposed to 4, so. It's got to be works.
What do you do if somebody, if this is a club as opposed to a private road agreement as such, what do you do if somebody doesn't want to pay their share?
When?
What do you do?
Not sure how to answer that question.
Usually if you have a private road agreement, you can lien their property, and they may not pay. Typically you don't take them to court, but when the property is sold, at least you can collect the money. I don't see any provision in here to allow you to do that.
Not so sure, John. I have no idea.
John, the last sentence says legal action will
Yeah,
be taken.
you can always do that, no matter what.
Yeah, but most of the, even the cookie cutter, you can't lien, I mean, you have to go to court for liens like that.
Yeah.
So that's not something that is even generally in the cookie cutter stuff. Just hope that they cooperate. it's the same thing really with, when you've got subdivisions. They're under the same thing. The only ones that can really lien the property are the drain commissioner office can do it.
Yeah, the road commission.
Right, or the road commission, but usually private citizens unless the contractors can't.
How much time do you need?
What's that?
How much time do you need? You're asking for an extension, how
I
much
don't
time do you
know.
need?
It's not an extension, it would be a new permit.
A new permit?
Yeah,
So it's 1 year?
there's no provision in, well, we can state the period of time. There's no provision in our ordinance to give an extension,
Okay.
so
But this,
we have to renew whatever we did.
The 1 year is a minimum that's accorded by the ordinance, so then if you issue a permit tonight, then you will get another year. But the guidance I was looking for is, one, the draft maintenance agreement, is that acceptable the way you have it, or does it need to come back to you with any revised agreement, or can I work with him administratively to figure out the details? Because that does impact the timeline for him to start construction. So that's one guidance he's seeking. And then two, the construction bond previously was set for $50,000. And budget after his, correct me if I'm wrong, your communications with the contractor, he thinks $25,000 should be sufficient. So he's asking.
We can keep it at 50,000.
Right, but in short, in the memo, I provided some draft recommendations and options you need to consider so that it's easy for me to help Majid figure out what the requirements and what the remaining items are.
So is the club document here, this draft, what's being proposed for the road maintenance agreement?
And they was drafted this, I honestly, I didn't have a lot of time to look into it, I just sent it to Lee and I've been away, so I didn't look into the details of what's in this, so.
So there was one document that was recorded, which was in part of your packet before, which has some bylaws in it, but there was a question about whether that was still active or not, which required him to come up with a new draft. So all the language that is in front of you, except the highlighted part, seems to be carried over from that inactive previous agreement. But to answer your question, that's what he's proposing as of now, the one-page Fox Club.
So this draft with the yellow is simply a revision of their bylaws.
Right.
Their organizational bylaws. It really doesn't pertain to the private road maintenance agreement.
That is the private road maintenance agreement they're proposing, which is why I've included a draft template, and then I'm asking both for guidance. Do you think is the one he provided, is that acceptable, or do you want to find something in between, or do you want him to work with the residents, the new draft? Do you want him to come back to you for review? So it's just a lot of what ifs.
So was the draft template of the potential road maintenance agreement provided?
Yes,
at
the one that
project?
was included in the packet, Majid was given a copy of it.
Okay, and so did you distribute that to the?
One that you sent me?
Yes.
They, the neighbors, said they're not interested. I mean, unless I can do my own agreement and use it, but I don't think they're not two agreements, right? And I can't bring everybody to the table to agree on all that stuff that's in there because it's scary to them. One day, like so I gave up on trying with 8, 9 neighbors, and I spent a lot of time, not just, a lot of time. We met, I think, at the township here, and we met 3 times at the road there, and I visited every one of them. And that's what we got.
From what I understand is that the neighbors are willing to sign the one-page Fox Club document, but they have a lot of concerns with the draft template that was provided. And his you're having challenges getting their signatures.
Well, I can appreciate that. I think the issue is this doesn't really lay out the requirements for them to maintain the road safely, which we have in, the maintenance of the private road. It doesn't really talk about too much what they'll do if there's a dispute, and it doesn't hold us, it doesn't indemnify us or make it clear that we have no obligation to that road once they, sign this document. And what happens if they fall out of compliance with the road maintenance on our end, what do we do then? We're making it clear that we will do something if it's an issue, right? So if there's some way to combine some of that language to make them more comfortable and also remove the discrepancy of the scheduled meetings time, which isn't, one says quarterly and one says every other month.
Sri, can I ask a question? In this draft, there's 7 parcels represented on there. Is that all the parcels? It seems like there's 3 on the back. Where's the second page?
Three more.
I don't have that. Oh, I don't have the second page.
I want to read the language.
I think we got a few things to consider, and after we had this meeting last time, and we talked about this at the end, I made mention about private drives, and we've got a lot of them that are out there. We're gonna have a lot of issues with getting the private drive, the private road maintenance agreement signed by existing ones. They're just not gonna, people just aren't gonna do it. And I think the simple fact is that there is something there. In my opinion, there is something there. There is something that is detailing, collecting money. I do think there should be something in there that just mentions the money is for maintenance of the road to keep it up under private road standards, which we don't have to necessarily be listed, but that's what people are talking about. Coming in later after a developer or a property owner has split the property and created one of these and asking a property owner to get this agreement signed is untenable. They're not going to be able to do it. They just won't. Nobody's going to sign on to where you can say you can lien my property. It just won't happen. I think that what is here is something that they're recognizing that there is an agreement. They're willing to put something down to bring it up to more or better standards, and I think, in my opinion, that's acceptable. With some language that says this is for maintenance, and we're supposed to keep it up to standards. You might want to mention for fire and safety, access, et cetera, et cetera.
We're not really being asked to approve the road maintenance agreement. We're being asked to basically issue a new permit for the project, which will give the applicant time to come up with an acceptable maintenance agreement. I think we've got the original motion and 7 conditions. And I think what we need to do is just duplicate that if we're in agreement that our initial intention is what we wanted to do. And I would think we would just redo what we did before.
Is that some kind of motion?
I can make that motion. I move that we issue approval for Platts Drive private road extension. The existing road shall be established and maintained with at least an 18 feet wide travel surface. 2, proper ditches shall be installed around the cul-de-sac and along the road from the cul-de-sac down south to elevation 902 on the west side of the road and elevation 904 on the east side of the road to manage stormwater flow. 3, maintain ditches to provide proper water flow to Joy Road. 4, install driveway culverts at 4387, 4306, and 4303 Potts Drive. 5, the applicant shall submit a draft private road maintenance agreement for review and approval by the township board prior to the start of construction. 6, the applicant shall post a performance guarantee in the amount of $50,000 that shall be posted prior to the start of construction. And 7, the applicant shall submit an as-built drawing prior to final inspection by the township engineer.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay.
I have some questions.
Okay.
There were 4 questions asked of this, or 4 suggestions. One of them was that motion. The second question is, should the motion just be for a year, as is our typical, permit? Should that just be for a year? We can expand it past a year if we choose to do so. Is there any interest in moving beyond a year?
How much time do you need?
For what, to build the road?
To get the approval and to build the road, both.
Say a month?
No, the permit's for a year. Do you need more than a year, is what I think he's asking.
Yeah.
Do you need more than a year?
No, for the permit, I'm sorry, I thought you was talking about something. No, for the permit, I don't need, we can do this year. We're ready to do it. I got everything lined up, surveyor, trucks, dirt getting hauled, and the installer is ready. So we were hoping to do it this month if we can, so that's the plan.
He has a contractor lined up to construct. He's ready to move forward, but he cannot start construction unless a compliance permit is issued. I can't issue the permit unless it meets all the conditions of the motion. One of the conditions is that a private road maintenance agreement should be executed. In the motion that's on table, if you guys provide some relief with regards to the timeline. The previous motion said the agreement should be approved by the board before he can start construction. But the current motion that's on the table.
I didn't get to that part yet.
Right. So that's a segue to that comment.
Yeah.
I need some guidance.
Yeah, so then, I don't want to forget the third question, but I will ask that question in a minute. The third question is, can he post a guarantee in the amount of $25,000 instead of $50,000? That was a question on the list too. And then the other one was, Shri did ask for some feedback about how the private road maintenance agreement should be improved so that she can work with him, and we gave that feedback. The question that she has listed on here is, does that private road agreement have to come back to the board for approval now, or can it be administratively approved?
Prior to completion of construction, that's it.
Right. So these are the questions. Any feedback on the year? It seems like a year is enough time, so we can go with the standard for a year. Okay, what about the $25,000 posted amount instead of 50, right? Any input on that?
It's a couple $100 difference to the applicant. as long as we've got some sort of guarantee that we can finish up anything he starts.
Yeah, remember, it's a performance guarantee, it's not a charge.
Right.
Right, yeah.
He has to get a letter from the bank, basically, but they charge for that letter based on how much money it is.
Okay, but we would support $25,000 if it works out, or we would not.
Mr. Herman?
I think it's fair. It's not the entire road that's being built, he's widening.
How do you feel about that with your motion?
I'm willing to amend the motion to reduce the performance guarantee from 50,000 to 25,000.
And Jeff already weighed in, he was the second on the motion.
Okay, and then the last thing is, do we want, with the feedback that we've given them about the road agreement, do we want that to come back to the board for approval, or do we want, can it go through administrative approval?
I think it could go administrative approval, but one of the items that was attached was an affidavit regarding the maintenance agreement. So bylaws that is what he revised and seemingly the neighbors are agreeing to, you know, as Jeff noted, doesn't really talk about maintenance of the road. So at some point after that was filed, they filed this affidavit that says, hey, we all are going to pay for the road, and this is the reason we all come in ingress and egress through it, and you know, so they had to file this to declare that so that all the landowners do that. So there's got to be something else in this document, or they're going to be filing another affidavit that states this is what's maintaining the road. So I guess it would be a suggestion that you take some of the affidavit information and plug it into here, and this will have more weight, and I think be satisfactory.
So with that, with the feedback and the additional feedback we've given Shri, who agrees that she's going to help make sure the road agreement is a little more solid, are we approving administrative review of the road agreement?
I'm not sure that I want to put Shri in that position. We've got a number of private road issues, as you can see in your packet. You heard earlier tonight. I'm not sure we want to put her in that position where she has to necessarily say, no, this doesn't do it, you need this much more. I think that the board ought to take that responsibility. That's only my personal feeling under section 6 of the.
I hate to make the process longer for somebody, but I also feel like making sure that the board takes a look at it protects the people involved, you know, protects the landowners too, and making sure there's language in here, and protects us as the township both. So it probably does make sense. In my opinion is that maybe the board should look at the road agreement.
I mean, based on the current motion, you are giving him additional time without holding the construction.
Yeah.
Anything else from board members? Okay, we have a motion in front of us that's been amended. The two new elements of that particular motion is a one-year new permit under the 7 conditions that we had earlier, with the exception of the performance guarantee being reduced to $25,000. Roll call. Aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay. Next in your packet, you have a private road. Street. Have at it.
Do you need this? Are you frozen still? Okay.
My laptop keeps getting frozen, so the next one is valid. So the board did have an opportunity to talk about it before the resident did come before you last year, trying to figure out what the options are. And after exploring multiple options, they decided to go to seek a private road approval for an existing road. Right now, what you have in front of you, the decision you need to make tonight is not whether the approval of the road, all that is whose input would you need, or if there's any additional information you need that's not included in the packet for you to be able to make a decision at the next meeting. They are also seeking a variance to accept the road the way it is. I think applicant's representative Kate Bond is here to present her version. As from an administrative perspective, I'm just trying to look for input. Do you need any other information beyond fire review, engineer's review, and my review? Any other information from the applicant? Because this is required, if they are seeking a variance, it does need to be published in paper before we can bring it back to the board at the next meeting.
Board members. Sir, any additional information?
Is this
One
us?
on Valley View.
Another private road. I'm sorry.
I guess I'm a little bit slow. Why can't the driveway come off the main road?
So they did reach out, I'll actually let Kate respond to that question because she did reach out to Washington County Road Commission and there were challenges with regards to the grade and other. Are you talking about the existing road or?
Myrtle Road.
Myrtle. So Myrtle Road, yes, some existing grade challenges.
Grade can be changed.
I will let Kate respond to that.
Good evening. My name is Kate Bond. With me are the applicants, Kevin and Suzanne Robbins. So if you have additional questions that I can answer, they're here. Also Tom Colbert with Midwestern Consulting. So we've been in front of the board previously and had a lengthy discussion with you about Valley View Drive, its history, what the Robbins are wanting to do with their property that fronts on both Merkle and Valley View. And we have met with Cherie a number of times. We've met with Ted Erickson, your engineering consultant. We've met with, and you'll have to forgive me, the fire chief, I forgot. Yes, so, and we've done a lot of research into the origination of Valley View Drive. Before I answer your very simple question about Merkle Road, Valley View Drive has been in existence and servicing the Robbins property since, for decades. We can look back and see it providing access to the Robbins property since the 1960s. We have documentation where, speaking of maintenance agreements, with all of the residents on Valley View Drive with an active maintenance agreement. The Robbins have the portion of the right-of-way for Valley View Drive on their property that the existing residents utilize to access their properties. Merkle Road is the frontage of one side of their property is fronting on Merkle Road. The important part of the history of this property is that the property was a gravel pit at one time. The variances we are seeking elaborate on the details of why there is a hardship associated with this property. when there is a gravel pit associated with the property, there are materials there that are not supportive of construction on the site, building roads on the site, building driveways on the site. So I go into detail in that in the variance supporting documentation in the materials that you have in front of you. In addition, there's significant topography on the site. In some cases, there is a one-on-one slope that is inaccessible to vehicles, not just residential vehicles, a person's car, a person's SUV, but that means that in addition to the Robins having to access their property well over 1,000 feet off of Merkle Road where they intend to build their home across significant topography, unstable subsoils, materials that wouldn't support construction of a driveway. There's also the length that they have to get back to and switchbacks. And if you consider the driveway that they would have to build, which is likely going to be, let's just say a minimum 9-foot wide gravel driveway, if that driveway could get back there and access it, it is inaccessible to emergency vehicles. There's no way for a large fire truck to get back there. The conversation we had with fire and engineering early on in the process, he mentioned concerns over Valley View Drive and access there and where would they turn around. Valley View Drive has a cul-de-sac. It's a well-maintained road. If there was a driveway from Merkle Road back to where the Robins want to build their home, well over 1,000 feet, if a emergency vehicle could get back there and past all of those hurdles, they would have to back up over 1,000 feet. Those of you who are familiar with how emergency vehicles operate, they don't like to back up more than 150 feet. So those are some of the hardships that would be encountered off of Merkle Road. But in addition, when the Merkles were first interested in putting their home plans together, they approached the road commission to seek a driveway off of Merkle Road, and they were provided with documentation from the road commission that since their property fronts on Valley View Drive, they need to provide access to their property from Valley View, which is a private road, and not off of Merkle, which is a public road. So that's a very long answer to your very short question.
Do you have any documentation to show us that the soils are not capable of supporting the driveway?
So the Robbins Builder has done a number of soil studies or analysis for the back of the property. There's been no soils analysis up front. It's a gravel pit. We have USGS soils that indicate that it's a gravel pit. Because we are an engineering firm, Midwestern Consulting, and we look at available existing information on a property, we would recommend to anybody looking at that property that this is an area that's not conducive for building specific things, drain fields, driveways, home construction, etc., without significant removal of that material and replacement of engineered fill. The extent of that as a gravel pit is unknown at this time. Because there's available material in the back part of the property, that's where they are going to build.
So you weren't the engineer on either Lockout Vine or the preserve, then?
I don't know why that's relevant to this conversation.
There are two gravel pits down here
I
that
understand.
are well
But its relevance to this is, so for a single residential, single family home, a driveway accessed over a gravel pit is excessive for the use. In addition to the unstable soils, the topography of a one-on-one slope, I think you would agree, is not really conducive to a driveway.
The slope can be modified now.
I understand it, but it's excessive. And the question that we're trying to answer is there a hardship on this particular property? Those are two of the hardships. And then in the materials I provided to you are a whole list of other hardships.
Is there any home site at the front of the property you're
Not at this time. Their home site is in the back of the property.
Well, I understand where they want to, but you're trying to tell us about a hardship.
Mhm.
Isn't their property large enough where they could put a home at Myrtle Road?
I don't know the answer to that specifically. I can look at the topographic survey that's provided in the information and see that there's excessive slope, existing wooded areas, unstable soils, areas that are not conducive to home building. So in the portion of their property that they own, there is an area very conducive to building in the back of the property that requires access from Valley View Drive. And since there is currently access from Valley View Drive to the property, they're simply seeking continued access from Valley View Drive.
I understand their want.
The entire front portion of the property is a gravel pit.
I understand that.
A former gravel pit.
Yeah, I understand.
We never had formally investigated soil studies up in that area where they had previously.
That was my question.
Yeah, we never investigated that area.
She told us though that the soils weren't conducive to putting the drive in.
Our builder said they wouldn't even do it for us if we asked. The type of special foundations you would need to be so cost prohibitive, they don't even do things like that.
Where we're putting it now used to be, I believe, a field that was a farmer's field. That whole area was farming. So it's not gravel, it's soil. It's at the lower part of the property.
I understand that's where you desire to build the home that would be the easiest. But you're asking about a hardship.
It's a financial hardship for us to try to consider to build on land that's not conducive for building.
Thank you. Board members.
Question for the applicant. Did all this paperwork that you have here, you've talked to the other property owners on Valley View?
Yes.
And they're willing to sign and have this put into the clerks as a private road and with the maintenance agreement and everything?
Correct. Yeah.
Since we were last here and all the additional work that was done including putting that application together, both Kevin and Suzanne went to talk to each one of the neighbors that live on Valley View Drive and explained what they're trying to do and got concurrence with all of them.
It's very difficult to do. So,
It took a long time.
yeah.
Other board members.
May I speak, please? I live on Valley View, and I have not yet agreed to this proposal.
What's your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ken Phil, 6273 Valley View. I'm on the cul-de-sac as you're looking at the drawing number at the end of the street on the right side.
Yeah, you wanted to add this ATV to 57, you have to get.
I did, but what's in your package, and I have a copy of it, is an agreement that was basically an extension of an agreement that was signed, I think, in 1984 by just two of the property owners that existed at that time. Right now, the road, we're considered a driveway, which, according to the township ordinance, allows up to 3 homesteads to access that driveway. Right now, there's currently 4. The 4th house apparently got built, and that issue of a 3 property limit was overlooked. I'm not sure what happened. But Valley View right now is as wide as these, the surface area is as wide as these 4 chairs. What I understand has to happen, either it has to come up to a full road condition, or, and I heard it mentioned, on a previous road discussion you had today, 18 feet plus two 2-foot shoulders, so 22 feet. There's all kinds of, I haven't seen any engineering studies or any information as to how that's going to be improved and what the specification of the road is width-wise. Right now, when a car comes down Valley View, if there's another car coming, we have to back up to let the car coming down. So 18 feet is going to make it much bigger. 2-foot shoulders, 22 feet. I'm not sure. The easement's going to have to change. There's all kinds of conditions that have to be met. The agreement you have in there related to the gentleman's question if the neighbors had approved it, they're not here, but I've talked with them. I think they're bashful to come and say anything about it. But the thing is, once these documents are going to be signed and recorded, run with the land on all these properties. So it's a private road, it's a contract, and it's there forever. It allows, once it has that road condition, these properties can be split, which would add to the congestion. Subject to the ability to build on and all that. So there's a lot of things. Oh, I was going to say, since the request was submitted to the township, the township's come up with a new template. Are you all aware of the template for access and maintenance? Do they all have that, the board?
Are we talking about the private road agreement?
Yes.
That's just an example. It doesn't have to be that document.
I know. But that's the one that I think that you're trying to get to, because you have so many of these driveways that you have to wrestle with. And I think that's going to become the standard. I have a copy of that. When you compare that new document to the document in your package for the variance, they're completely different.
Can I say something real quick? I met with him and the other 3 homeowners, and everyone agreed to sign a new agreement. He simply said, okay, all 3 of them said, yes, we are completely fine with it. He said, I'm okay with it, but I'd like to add a few modifications for ATVs and things like that. So I said, completely fine, let us meet with the board, make sure we're going to get a variance request. Once we know that we're moving forward towards that, we can tweak it, modify it. So for him to come here and pretend like I haven't had agreement from those 4 people, completely false. I don't know what this whole thing is for, but whatever you want, you're not going to get.
Okay, we aren't going to get involved in this argument. You're both out of order.
I emailed with him a couple of weeks, no indication that there was any problems at all.
What we need you to do, if you wish to get a variance, is to come forward with a new maintenance agreement that the board is willing to accept that will work in your neighborhood, okay? In terms of what you need, may be different than what you want. So,
Sure. Our attorney drafted the maintenance agreement. If it's open for modification, we just have to do it.
Okay, so get it signed.
Yeah, but the idea was to not try to finalize an agreement until we knew that we had the variance approved and we were moving forward, we were making progress. Clearly, it doesn't make sense to try to get attorneys
chicken
involved.
and the egg, that's where you're at.
So, can I ask a couple questions for clarification?
You are the presenter, yes.
So first, before I forget, I think it's important because there's a grave misconception by the gentleman in the back that we're asking for, may I finish, that we're asking for widening of the road, shoulders, and a wider right-of-way. And so it's clear that the materials that have been submitted have not been clearly read and understood. So I would repeat that the application in front of the board today for a private road application includes variances so that the road Valley View Drive remains existing as is in its current condition without any changes. Period. We have the variances and a draft maintenance agreement. To repeat what Mr. Robbins said, it was my impression and the attorney's impression that we submit for the variances and have the board hear those variances, open for discussion, make a decision on it, and then amend the maintenance agreement to meet what is decided at that point, and then go back for discussion with the other owners. I'm assuming all those owners will be here because, of course, they'll be.
Well, we're gonna have a public hearing.
Right, exactly. So with everybody here, and everybody here for the discussion as to the result of those variances, the maintenance agreement obviously has to get updated for the result of those variances. And that's our intention. So we're not trying to push that draft maintenance agreement past anybody. It's a starting point. And it was basically amending the original agreement to include the Robins, initiate discussions with the other residents on Valley View Drive, and then as it moves forward with the board and our requested variances, if they are modified in any way, the maintenance agreement would be modified as well. And then signatures start to come on board after that. So that was the intention.
Board members.
Kate, if I
Yes.
have a couple questions. I will say this is fairly confusing, and I know you may think that it's presented in a rational manner, but I did visit the site, Valley View Drive, and it is very narrow, and there are trees that are very close. I would be surprised if the DAFD wasn't concerned about providing service there, and that's probably being kind. So that's definitely a challenge, I think, for residents there to work through and find a solution that will ensure public safety for themselves.
Right.
But I don't really understand, there's an exhibit B that's referenced which shows the survey and description of the additional easement area, and I don't see that within the packet materials. I thought a drawing depicting what you're proposing, or I guess you're not proposing to do, would be helpful.
It's referenced in what part of the application? In the drawings or in the application itself?
The First Amendment to grant easement and declaration of maintenance obligations.
Okay. Does it reference a library page number?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No, it's a blank sheet of paper. Survey and description of additional easement area. Behind that is the 87 document. So I just was expecting to see the survey, which would have shown, and you provided a packet of information, but it's just existing conditions, no proposal of anything.
Okay, so I think therein lies the issue. There is currently an easement and right-of-way over Valley Drive. It's 33 feet along the Robbins property, along the southern portion of Valley, on Robbins along Valley Drive, and then it widens to 66 feet from there to the end to the cul-de-sac.
So the property to the south does not have an encumbrance of an easement?
Correct. And
So
they
you have half an easement, basically.
They have never participated in Valley View Drive, and they choose not to. So the one request for the variance on the right-of-way width covers that.
Can I ask about the 1987 document and why it's in here? This is a reference to, not to Valley View Road, right? This is a reference to Hickory Lane Road.
Correct. It's in there because Sheree asked for it.
I asked for the document because you said it's amending another document. So I asked to include a document you're referencing.
Okay, was the reference in the maintenance agreement?
The First Amendment, yes. The first
Okay. Okay, so all those, the original maintenance agreement has language in it referencing a parent parcel and original agreements.
So,
And so all those documents are provided.
so this is the parent parcel,
Um,
which I know because I own this parent parcel, so I know these people. But this road agreement having to do with 60/50 and 60/60 and 60/40 is the road I live on.
Right.
So I don't think it,
So I did not include that in the original application,
okay.
and because it was referenced, I believe Sheree asked for it.
Okay, so this is not, but I just want to be clear, that this is not a reference to their road agreement in any way. It's not related to theirs. I don't believe this is.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. We started out with that document, did our research, found it was for the road you're referencing, found our way around there, then to Valley View Drive.
Which is
Because some,
behind it,
yes,
yeah.
because some of those parcels are related to your property.
Yes, the Watkins own,
Yes.
all of the property.
Yes, and that brought us around to Valley View, and then in addition, the four properties that are there right now in Valley View. So we continued our title search and found all of the properties on Valley View. So that document, we set aside early on in the review process.
Okay,
So
so
it
there's
was not part of
confusion.
our packet.
Gotcha.
I think Sheree probably read it in the original maintenance agreement,
Which
which
one
was
it was, the
amended.
Equine agreement?
Yes.
Um,
It took me a minute.
While we're on the topic, can I ask a question? So the draft document you provided, it says First Amendment to grant of easement and declaration of maintenance obligations. But what do you call it First Amendment if this is the?
I can't speak to the original maintenance agreement. That's how it was, I would have said recorded, but I don't know that it was recorded. That was the original maintenance agreement that the people on Valley View Drive have. If there's going to be an amendment to that agreement, that's where the attorney starts. So the attorney started with that as a draft, came up with adding the Robins to that maintenance agreement, and there might have been, if there were 3 people involved in that original one, that he might have added all 5 people now on Valley View, and that's what was amended in the draft.
Another way to probably address is maybe creating a maintenance agreement that replaces.
That's perfect.
That way we're not going back and forth between what was the original, what's covered in that, what's covered in here, trying to compare, just coming up with an agreement and indicating that this overrides every preceding agreement.
Nobody's challenging that. I think as a first
That's
draft,
where the
because
confusion happens.
here's the thing. If we would have started with a brand new, starting over from scratch, there are people that live there who operate off of that.
Just to summarize what I've heard so far, they are seeking 2 variance requests, but it is not a request to need to three. But that is not something the board needs to make a decision tonight. However, with regards to that request, if you need additional information beyond the narrative provided, you can ask now, or you can wait till you actually review and ask at the next meeting. From what I've seen, Mr. Kingsley, you had questions regarding any soil reports that have been done. If your concern is addressed with the response, then that's fine, or would you like them to do some soil tests and include that information with the next packet?
I do have one additional question about the property to the south that is adjacent to the Roberts property. They have no access to Valley Drive, is my understanding.
Correct.
If they were to be included in the maintenance agreement, they could have future access to that drive. Would that not be beneficial for them to participate as long as their financial liability on that was limited.
That neighbor would not sign a maintenance agreement. Yeah, there's just no way. Her family's known him for 30 years and we're friendly, but when it comes to anything involving anything obligation in any way, there's just simply no way. We've asked him multiple times about utility access and things like that, and it's always a very firm no, yes, any request.
Is there any other information that we need before we set a public hearing to deal with this three requests for variances?
Well, with regards to member or trustee Manzolo's comments, would you like to see anything in the drawings than what's been provided? Any additional, any profiles or any other information that would help you? Any, this would be the, you can always ask more information at the next meeting too, but if there's anything you are, any of the board members would like to request more with regards to the drawings, this would be a good time to guide.
So if I may ask a question, what you're proposing is basically, if I'm hearing you properly, you want everything left exactly as it is right now?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So may I ask why there isn't interest by the Robins to make any sort of investment? If they're putting a driveway in anywhere on the property, they have to spend money to put a driveway in. Why they're not willing to work with their neighbors to, expand the easement area, do some improvements, bypass areas for, you cannot get 2 cars on that drive. So there are some things that they could do to help their cause by investing in improving the situation.
Right, so we have been discussing this for a significant amount of time. If you'll recall, we have been in front of you previously talking about the conditions, the status, etc. We did sit down here and speak to Ted and the fire chief and talked about what are some things we can do to accommodate any of the concerns that you have. And it was the comments we were getting back, and John, we talked to you, John, the concerns you mentioned were things that were things we can take care of in the maintenance agreement. We talked about bump outs for turning, for bypass, all those things we discussed. So we have not had the benefit of a formal review to understand specifically what the concerns are of both fire and engineering. Now, you and I can talk about all day long about what might be the issue when you and I drive out there. But I know that there have been homes that have been built out there with semis that brought materials out there, and that worked. There have been emergency vehicles accessing the homes that are out there right now that have had no issues in accessing those properties, turning around and getting back out. So until someone gives us something to respond to specifically, what we have right now is the ability to put turning templates, and you and I both know how that works, on our paper, submit it to the engineer, submit it to fire for a formal review, and come back and understand, hey, here's a pinch point that we'd like to talk about. Or up here is an area that we'd like this to be cleared. We'd like something right in here. But we've not had that yet.
Other comments?
I'm sorry, so, but your position is to do nothing. That's what I heard this evening, so.
Right.
Okay.
But Dan, we just made a formal application, just made it. And we're asking for 3 variances, and there's typically a review right now, it works just fine, and it's been working fine for the decades that it's been in existence. It's properly drained. There's no washboarding, there's no potholes,
In our initial meetings, there were some recommendations made by the fire department for potential improvements on Valley View Drive. Have you addressed?
Sheree, we did not have a formal application submitted to the township. I asked for a formal review and to put that in writing, and since we did not have a formal application, I couldn't get that to recall that.
Okay. So I think in that case, the next steps would be that we will share this with the fire and engineer, and then they will provide their recommendation and input based on the variances sought, so that whatever verbally discussed at the meeting, Kate will have something in writing so that she can respond, expand on her response to the variances that the board can consider at the next meeting.
Yeah. In addition, these are plans prepared by the Robins. So if they are given something back to reply to, they have to take that to the other people who live on Valley View Drive and ask for input on that. They can't make these decisions on their own. So those are all things that come after this initial submittal and discussion with the township, the reviewing agents, etc. So we're here today at an initial submittal.
Any other comments from board members?
John, just following up that. So there's a 66-foot easement that's on the easterly half, and then it decreases to 33.
Correct.
So it was somewhat anticipated that there'd be some improvements, development, what have you, if they granted 66-foot easements for those parcels. Would you agree with that?
I guess asking that is different, right? I don't think I understand what you're asking.
Well,
By between the Robins?
why was a 66-foot easement with, I don't know what the diameter of the cul-de-sac is, but right away was granted.
For 33 feet, right?
66, 33 each side of, well, the road's not in the center based on your sketch, but, and then it decreases down to 33 feet.
On the Robins property down to Muckle Road. Right. And
So,
your question?
Yeah, so it would seem to me that there was an anticipation of a greater investment in road or improvements at some point upon what is built there, because they gave a wider easement.
In the back, it's the people in the back that created the wider easement, the 33 feet on
Yeah.
the Robins property.
Yeah, and I assume they did that because they assumed that there would be a, more normal private road, maintenance, investment, construction, what have you. And, there's room there, it's more open, it's, wider and flatter, what have you. So I'm just confused why that was done there, but not on the front part.
You're asking about why the 66 wasn't done on the front part on the Robins Road? I'm sorry, I'm not following along with you. Again, back to your point, it makes sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to me. So the 66 feet, why it wasn't when you say in front, on the Robins property?
Yeah, I'm observing that there's a 66-foot easement
In the
for
back.
the eastern half of this road.
Right.
Or driveway.
Right.
And then it is 33 feet on evidently all of the Robins property.
Right, okay. So we can only, our assumption on that in our office was that the intent, because it was 33 feet to the southern property line of the Robins property, was that the intent was to get the other 33 feet from the parcel south of that. But that person did not want to grant that easement. We have no documentation anywhere that we can find in title work, in any of the research we did, to find why that happened. So the Robins property, either before Kevin and Suzanne came along, it was granted the 33 feet to provide access to the parcels and back. And we can follow that through history in all of the title work that we have. But I can't respond to any assumptions on anybody's part. The 33 feet was because there were starting to be properties in the back on the east side of the cul-de-sac.
Okay, so I guess.
Started out with 2, and then those were split, and then there were 4, and then that 33-foot section was never widened. And we believe it was because the parcel on the south side of that never granted their part, the 33-foot easement.
Okay.
Why didn't they just shift all the 66 foot on the Robbins?
We can only conjecture, and this conversation was had over weeks and months in our office. We can only conjecture that the intent was to have the road go up the property line to those back parcel splits, and the 66-foot easement was supposed to straddle that property line. So one property owner played along, and the other did not.
The family that owned all that land granted themselves that easement, and then the Watkins, they developed those back parcels. They built the road. So they basically just built a road sufficient to them, they thought, to be able to develop those 4 homes. And that was it. They were done. So I don't know why you would assume that they planned on someday widening it, because I'm not sure who they would think would eventually do that someday.
And it's a hardship now because of the trees and so on to put the entire easement on the Robbins property. That's what you're telling me.
Correct. And then there are banks there. I provided pictures on the last page in case someone didn't go out there to understand what's happening out there now. So the property destruction that would have to happen in order to widen to do the requirements that are currently necessary, that we're saying and asserting that currently there are 4 property owners back there that are getting back and forth with all the services necessary, garbage, deliveries, etc., without issue. And so that's why we're coming forward with things as is, to say it's working now. Currently, there's access from Valley View to the Robbins property, and they just want to maintain that.
What happens if the Robbins wish to split their property sometime in the future?
I can't speak to that.
Other questions?
So we trying to speak clear, we are trying to split it currently. That's
I understand.
Oh, you mean future split?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you are trying to split your property there?
It's how this whole thing came about. They prepared a land division document with their plot plan in the back with a driveway request. And it was not necessarily denied, but pointed out that there is no access from Valley View. And so that's where everything started to come. We started doing research on Valley View, digging into all the land divisions and understanding, because there's all the documentation refers to it as a private road. And so we went through nearly a year now of research and discussions, and determined that the proper thing to do was to get, because there are 4 homes existing, is to get it identified as a private road on the township's books, get a maintenance agreement in place, get the access, and then move forward.
Okay, I'm just intrigued by the split, because I thought you said you couldn't build on the front part of the property, so.
Well, the idea would be the front part is kind of like a family park. That's how it's been treated for decades. They planted 10,000 trees on it.
2,000.
I'm sorry, 2,000.
2,000 trees.
So the idea would be to always maintain that as family land, and therefore the home, if it was ever to be sold, would be on a separate parcel, and to be sold, whereas the rest of the land would always be kept within the family. Knowing that that's never really gonna be buildable land or anything like that, it would just be, something to pass down to our kids. Without having to pass down a home to them also that they may not want.
Okay, board, is there anything we need from the applicant? Okay, we'll set up a public hearing for variances 3 on a private road.
The date, I think, will be determined based on, once I get the review letters, I will forward them to the applicant, giving them time to respond and provide response letters or any revised drawings. And then we will publish in paper and bring it back to you. So it's hard to say when. I don't foresee that happening for your June meeting, but most likely July.
Okay. Thank you. Update on upcoming private road permit requests. Sri, I think you well demonstrated tonight why you put this memorandum together. Go ahead.
And I wanted to add, since I put that memorandum in the board packet, I had 2 more that were added to the list. I think the common confusion that's out there is that frontage and access are 2 different requirements. If you have frontage, if you have access, doesn't mean you comply with frontage. I think that's where the confusion is occurring, and that's what I've been trying to work with every resident to explain what that is. Before I move into it, I wanted to clarify one comment Gary Fritz made at the beginning of the public comment. It is referred to as the access road in the table. That's the road he is on, and that's the road Gary Fritz asked, shared his concerns. So that property has an existing house that was demolished a year ago, and our ordinance says that if a non-conformity is abandoned over 6 months, then it should comply with the current standards. And when he did reach out to me regarding, Meadowlake House, I was just getting started. I don't have an inventory of private roads in the township, and looking at the county map, I made a call that saying that, this seems like a private road, so you need to apply for a compliance permit. By the time I figured out the inventory and then I reached out to Gary's indicating that, hey, I would like to correct my previous statement. Gary's a man of action, he already bought the property by then. So I've been working with him, and he's been very cooperative, understanding the change, trying to figure this out. Having said that, the current ordinance only focuses on is. So the current ordinance has a couple of challenges with me when I try to apply that to the existing conditions. One, the requirement for the drawings and the site plan drawings. The requirements that are listed in the current ordinance are extensive and sometimes maybe based on my discussions with Ted Erickson, our consultant engineer, may be reduced as they apply to existing roads. We don't need as great detail as profiles and other items if the existing road is pretty flat and is not of a drainage concern. So that's one I wanted to point out. And the second challenge, as Trustee Hans has pointed out, and summarized in the memo, there is a lot of varied challenges depending on each situation. The applicant is going through trying to get the existing homeowners to come on board with the private road maintenance agreement. The one template that is put out there is a wish list that addresses every section in the private road ordinance, with the understanding that there will be a middle ground, there will be an abridged version of it. So I wanted some guidance on that. And then thirdly, the procedure for private roads has some additional steps that may be reduced to avoid confusion, and Valley View tonight is one example. Because once I get an application, we don't review it, we just bring it to you to make sure is it complete. And that creates confusion because you don't have the entire information, but it's hard to say whether you need more information or not knowing, what the comments could be. So that could simply be avoided by revising the procedure that when we come to you, we just come to you with all the information, with all the review letters. But I cannot make the call because the ordinance says you have to make the call. So there are certain areas where the ordinance may be revised to make it easier, make the process shorter, and acknowledge the challenges the existing owners are going through. So my goal tonight is not to discuss each of those cases presented in front of you. My goal tonight is just to bring the issue in front of you and also recognize that this is not something that can be discussed within a short period of time when you have a full agenda or many items. But to point out that this does need your undivided attention, focused, along with, what to do with it. So I'm just trying to get input from the board, how you would like to address it, because the list is just getting longer.
What she just said was, she thinks we need a special meeting to discuss private road ordinance 1380, if I'm not mistaken.
And the applications that are out there. Or we can sit all night tonight to go over it.
No, thank you. I do have a question. Under the paragraphs under the heading of existing conditions, you start the first sentence by saying there are a lot of shared residential driveways.
Yes.
I don't know what that means.
I did put together a spreadsheet. Because you know me, I love spreadsheets. In which I've identified all the roads that are I've identified a list of. In short, it's an inventory of the roads in the township.
We have roughly 2,500 homes.
Right.
How many of them are on non-compliant shared driveways?
The list I'm putting together is the list of roads in Webster Township, and then identifying which are public.
But shared driveways don't have names.
But I am trying my best. Some of them have names. That's what caught us in this issue, because Dinser Lane is a shared driveway, but it's identified on the county map as a private road. And what's defined as a private road in terms of county is that it's not public, so it's private. But private road on county map is not approved private road on township. That's another challenge I'm going through explaining to the residents when they say, it's a private road, county says it's a private road. And I have to say, yes, they just label it private road, but it's not the same approved private road as the township. So whenever you guys decide to set a meeting or talk about this, I will provide you the list of all the roads in the township so that you understand how many are shared driveways that are listed as private roads on the county. And then you'll have a big picture idea of.
And then will you also share with us what you'd like to see changed in the ordinance, or where the prickly spots are that you encounter when you're trying to help residents understand, or and what would make it easier,
yes,
but still safe? All the things that we're balancing.
I think I'm kind of prepared for that, because we did have a meeting with Trustee Harms, Ted Erickson, and Doug Armstrong, our chief, and Ed Root. I apologize, I forgot the other fire representative that was at the meeting. We went over the private road ordinance and we came up with some recommendations that would make it a little bit easier. So I will bring those summary of recommendations. It won't be a draft for discussion, but just summary of recommendations, which, to keep these moving forward, you can consider the roads recommendations, and then if you agree with them, you can use those to grant variances in these cases, but at least amend the ordinance for later ones. Because, I mean, it's a general law ordinance, you only need one meeting to adopt revisions too. So you can make a call at that point. So it could be like a workshop meeting kind of a setting where, you know, we just need to have a game plan to guide these residents, because like Gary said, each day counts. And they've been working with me for over a year trying to get to this point, and the biggest hurdle they're facing is dealing with the existing residents. So I just wanted all your time focused on private
Basically,
roads.
what she said was, she wants to schedule a special meeting to discuss private roads.
All private roads. Oh, you go to the bar. Thank you.
Barb's willing to do it.
Yes.
Can we do it next week before our meeting?
Yes, let's do it.
May 31st.
Is that something this body wishes to do?
I think we're gonna continue to have these issues, so I think we need to have that discussion.
Okay,
Does it have to be a
what
special
day?
meeting?
Does it have to be a special meeting? No? The answer is doesn't.
I'm sorry, but it's 9:45, and the next meeting, then we discuss this, will be 9:45 also.
I'm willing to come in on a Saturday.
No.
Again, Sri wants us to discuss this matter. She thinks that it requires a special meeting.
I'd like to know the scale of this issue before I agree to a special meeting. I don't know if we're talking about 3 roads or 300 roads.
I have the 3 roads in here, and I have 2 people ready to submit an application. So, but most of them are seeking variances, so you don't need to make a decision that night, because those need to be published in paper to be able to consider. So the format of the meeting I have in my mind is, let's review the ordinance and figure out what are the flexibilities we are comfortable with, and then provide some general guidance on those applications, just giving them a sense of what you feel about a certain variance they're asking for.
But Sri, how many, John's asking, how many roads, private roads that are not documented private roads are there in the town?
I
What's
started
the
making a list, I don't have a number, but I will provide the list at the next meeting, but not all of them are asking for now at the point, but like I mentioned in the beginning, I started putting the list together. I'm almost there. Even if you have a meeting day after tomorrow, I can wrap it up. So that's that. And
How about throwing out the number of 20?
Yeah.
you want a approximate number?
10 to 20.
No,
Of private roads?
no, I can look up.
I lived in 2 houses in Webster Township, and they were both on, you know, probably not legal
Private roads with this issue, not
Yes,
just,
at both of them.
not
Both-
just private roads.
No, they were private roads with an issue where somebody wasn't, they had drafted an informal contract that some people didn't follow, and it wasn't part of their lien, and some houses had it on their lien and some didn't, and that was an issue. And then in this house, they drafted a private road. Apparently, they drafted one in 1987, which I can now see. They drafted, we had internally drafted, we all agreed, so it wasn't an issue. We all paid our pieces of the puzzle, which was like 70 grand. So it's definitely a thing. It's not, you know, it's definitely a thing.
So yes, that's where I really want some input, because I've done everything in my part to respond to the questions the applicant had with regards to the understanding of the ordinance, with regards to the procedures, with regards to the submittal materials. I've met with the neighbors, explaining them why it's beneficial for them. I've done everything I've done, but I've now come to a point where I don't have answers for them because you have answers for them. And I cannot speak for the board. So I think, so that's where we are right now.
But the ordinance speaks for the board.
And the ordinance doesn't address the existing challenges that keep repeating out there.
The problem is, when we talk about private roads and people wanting to do things, they need frontage on an approved private road. And we're running into all these that have never come to the board.
Yeah.
So ordinances helping.
Well, a lot of them fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
They started with the process, and you'll have one property owner on a road that hasn't filed, you know, the agreement with the clerks. And the township may have somebody that has, you know, a couple property owners that are on there, and then the paperwork wasn't filed with the clerk, or the people have the documents, but when they sell, there's nothing on official record that it ever existed. And these are all the issues that happens. And I know quite a few people that were farming families that divided their properties, essentially should have had a private road, didn't have a private road, and built their houses on it. And the next thing you know, when they start selling, now you've got issues that it's not the family anymore. And this township is getting to where there's a lot of those, and our property here, people are going and they're finding, oh, here's a lot, or here was a house that burned down or whatnot, and I can build on it. Like it's an open lot, because the property's getting more and more scarce. I blame John with the PDR. But that, we're getting to it, and then people are looking for different ways, because they don't want to pay for driveways. And it's a way of saving money, and all of a sudden they can't build on it because it's not a road. And, I mean, how do they even get names on these things? That's the thing. It's like, it's a mailing address, and it was never a road to begin with, like you're saying, it's a driveway. So, we've got a lot of them, I think. I think there's more than 20, I would guess.
Oh, 44 from what I remember,
Yeah.
at least on the list I made so far. And I also wanted to mention that all the 5 roads I'm referencing to, I shared that list with Doug and Ed yesterday, and they started doing site inspections today. So they're going to give me a summary of what the condition that's specific to those 5. So you'll have that information as well at the next meeting. And then I also shared the spreadsheet, the work in progress with them, giving them a list of roads that are not approved private roads but are shared driveways. And they did say that when time permits or when they are there, they'll try to add notes to that list indicating what their rating of what the condition of the road is.
And did you share our private road ordinance
Yes.
with them
Yes.
as well?
The meeting we had, they were there, we all sat down with the private road ordinance, made some notes. So I had 2 meetings with them regarding the ordinance language. So like I said, I've exhausted every option I can, try to find answers for the residents right now.
And they're all different based on where the lot
Everything is different,
You
and
know, how far do they have to go, how much is that gonna cost?
I will provide every information you need to know to be able to make a decision, because I've been working on this for almost a year.
So are we ever going to talk about
Special meeting
private
date.
road?
I'll bring coffee and cookies.
Do we need to vote on whether or not to do that? Is that what comes next? Or do we?
I think we need the special,
I think we need this.
instead of special
I
meetings,
think
I don't
we
like
need to.
having all sorts of meetings, but I don't
you know, who are trying to, I would rather have clear language that they can understand and make it safe and easy, balance those things and do whatever we can do to simplify it, if, you know, if that's the case, since this is gonna continue to happen.
And get some total counts, and
Yeah.
especially ones that have lots or could have lots split off, to see what the magnitude that we're dealing with.
You don't have to give me a date tonight. I can, as long as I know that if the board's willing to hold a special meeting, I will send a couple of dates that are, you know, maybe you can decide if you wanted to keep it on a Tuesday, because it's a board meeting day, and then I can send some dates to you so that I can have, you know, I can get it on the calendar for our fire chief as well, to see if he can attend the meeting. And then once we decide on a date, we can, you know, publish it in the website as a special meeting.
And
So-
Sri, it might be a good idea to talk to him, tell him, once we get the list, to say, here's the list. Can you have somebody look at these and just give us an idea of
He's
how
already
many of
working
them are
on it.
gonna be more or less in compliance and how many aren't?
Right. He does have the phase 1 list. I don't, he said he's working on it, but I will give the whole list. But yes, that is my intent, because I really want the board to have a good understanding of the scale of complexity of this issue. And then the other thing, the one Mary Walker referred to, is that she has to go through a private road permit just to, because she needs to comply with the frontage requirement, but because they have to split the property for family splits reason, but they have no intention of building a house. And then the private road permit expires within a year if they don't construct the road. But they don't have an intention. All they're doing is to split the property for family purposes. So that's another thing the ordinance doesn't address. Once you get the road permit, can you defer construction when you build a house? You don't tie it with a different, like put a trigger to it. Or do you have to go through the entire expense of getting an engineer, design the road, which you may or may never build? So that's another thing we need to address. So, yes, especially
Along with
in
that,
place.
if they went to all the expense of hiring an engineer for a road that they may or may not ever build, our rules may change between now and 10 years from now, 15, when they actually do the road.
And then the other challenge is, one of the requirements for private road is to get a driveway permit from Washtenaw County. And driveway permit from Washtenaw County is not just providing them a drawing and say, hey, can I put a driveway here, does it meet the clear distance? I did speak to the right-of-way reviewer, the permit coordinator of the road commission. He said that they will actually require the property owners to cut down the trees so that they can go to the site, measure the clear site distance. And it just doesn't make sense to lose that vegetation for a road that may not be built in a while. So that's also something you want to consider.
As far as Mary Walker, the question with regards to that is, does that have to have a road, or does that just have to have easement? No road needs to be built until somebody...
He needs to have a road. It's parcel, the third one in your packet, because she's trying to split the property in the back. So there needs to be a private road to comply with frontage requirement.
Okay, what are we doing? Nothing at all? You'll wait to hear?
See, are we leaning towards a special meeting? We're just decided that the board is okay with a special meeting, but the date will be decided in the next couple of weeks and will be posted. Is that what I'm hearing?
Barb's good with that.
Barb will be like the special resident input.
I guess that we are not going any further on the KCI election request. We're going to have an election coming up. Barb?
Right now we maintain two lists. We have the permanent absentee ballot application list, and then the passing of where you can receive all your ballots be on the permanent ballot list. So we have to maintain 2 lists right now, and we are in the process of still maintaining the absentee ballot application list. And for the February election, we did send out an application. It had all the elections on it for the year, but we feel that not everybody responded to that. We feel like we have about 1,365 people that we should be mailing out an application for these 2 next big elections in August and November. So we have a quote. We'd like to still do it through KCI because it's still a tedious job with that amount of people, and the project would be an estimate of $1,021.29. We would like your blessing to be able to use KCI to mail those out to the voters.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call. Shelley?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Next, we'd like to just bang off for Donna and for the next 2 elections, our food budget. And we've been asking for $800 for each election, August, and $800 for November to feed the election inspectors. That would be a motion.
How many people is that, Mark?
I think it can be 25, about 25 people.
All day, too, right?
Yeah.
Support.
Further discussion? Art doesn't care about the food.
Welcome. Oh, no.
Roll call, Mr. Harms.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, clerk appointment. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to appoint Tony Brevant as clerk after,
June 1st. On June 1st.
yeah, effective June 1st,
To fill out the,
the remainder of the term.
good. A second? I mean, not I will accept. Oh, John already did?
You did.
I'm sorry. I didn't-
Westman?
Yes. Okay, it's an appointment.
That's a good question.
Yes.
On the resume, she referenced being a deputy clerk.
No,
She's the
deputy
deputy
treasurer.
She's the deputy treasurer.
I know that, but she's saying she was the clerk.
Wow.